Alright, guys, let's finish up the Saw franchise, which, as you know, I adore from beginning to right before this movie. Now, I haven't seen Spiral from the Book of Saw, I don't think, since it released. I think I only saw it once, unless I'm forgetting a second time, but I almost remember nothing from this movie. I just remember I did not care for it, like, at all, which is a shame because this was a perfect franchise for me up until this movie. Now, I think two of the biggest issues I have with this movie is, as a huge stand up comedy fan, I love Chris Rock as a comedian, especially his first few HBO specials. It's so hard to take him seriously in this movie. Like, in a Saw film, it's so hard. Like, I just. Sometimes he's doing good, and he'll have great delivery of lines and stuff, and then he'll just be Chris Rock, and he'll say something or a line or his delivery that just takes me right out of the movie because it just reminds me of something he would say in his stand-up routine. So it's very hard to like take him fully seriously in this movie. I think he does a great job, but he does a great job at being half in the movie and being great at being himself, which again I love him. But it in a Saw movie, I don't know. And we have Samuel L. Jackson in this, in a small role as his father, who does fine. I mean, he always does fine. But again, it's like these. I feel like these are too big of names to be in a Saw movie. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Like all the other Saw films have mostly like very low grade actors or unknown actors, but like, I mean, besides Tobin Bell and Shawnee Smith and I mean, I haven't really seen the guy who plays Hoffman. I forget the actor's name, but it felt more in the realm of believability, I guess. I mean, we had Danny Glover in the first one, but it still felt. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but like with this, you have Chris Rock and you have Samuel L. Jackson in a Saw film, and it takes me out of it a little bit. But let's watch Spiral from the Book of Saw 2021 and discuss the shit out of it because this is going to be like a blind watch for the most part. Because it's second thing I didn't like about this movie is the voice of the copycat Jigsaw. It's so bad. Like it sounds so weird. I mean, yeah, it's not really John. Obviously, he's dead, and it's a copycat. But it just it's so iconic in the Saw franchise. It's just the hello, Doctor Gordon, like with that voice on the tapes all the time. So I mean, I'm not saying that I wouldn't have liked any other voice. Like if they did it like a decent other voice, that would be fine. But this is just bad. I don't like it at all. The voice for the Jigsaw copycat on all the tapes and stuff. It sounds like a like I'm not even going to try to imitate it because I haven't heard it in a while. I just know I don't like it. So let's talk Spiral from the Book of Saw. Thankfully, we have though in the Twisted Pictures logo with the barbed wire that it twists it together because that's another just like total mainstay of the series. So I'm glad that Twisted Pictures did this movie. 'Cause if I recall correctly, Winnell and Juan were executive producers on this movie, right? I'm sure they didn't have much to do with it. I could be wrong, but I feel like just because they created the series is why they were executive producers. But I feel they dropped the ball with this one, but let's see if it goes up in my book. Yeah, the voice is like, live or die, make your choice. Like, it sounds so bad. Alright, getting to a decent start. I mean, the opening scene is really good. We have this. I'm pretty sure he was a detective, a cop, right? Boz? If I'm right on that, I don't know how I remember that. Maybe it's a unique name, but we have this guy in a train tunnel, and he comes across a mannequin. He says, "Put your hands up," but he doesn't know it's a mannequin yet. And he gets closer, and he realizes it is, and he gets stuck in the neck from somebody with the pig mask. Now, was the pig mask common knowledge, like when they were always covering Jigsaw on the news in the last movies? Like, I'm not sure if it was. Because why would they release to the public to say that the victims would be drugged by somebody in a pig mask, then taken to, like, I don't know if that would be known knowledge or public knowledge. But then you can always say that, I mean, Hoffman was was with the police. So I guess it makes sense. But he gets stuck in the neck, and then he wakes up in this device instead of standing on a chair with his tongue, like with a clamp on his tongue, and TV comes on with a terrible Jigsaw copycat voice and says that he's took the witness stand and lied and put innocent people in jail, and now he has to be able to survive not getting hit by this train that's going to be there in like 2 minutes. That he has to he has to just let himself drop and have his tongue ripped out, his lying tongue, and that's his only way to survive, and he can't do it. Which, I don't know, man. Getting hit by a train, I would have to just muster up some courage, and just and fall and have it rip my tongue out. I mean, you're gonna live still. Getting hit by a train, you're not living after that. Like, you're just not. So, but he can't do it. He eventually, right before the train, he's here and the train is like about here, he drops down, but he just turns into a just explosion of guts and blood all over the front of the train. And then we get a shot of his tongue, his severed tongue, hanging off the clamp, and then just spiral. Cool. Like, it's a decent intro scene. It's pretty good. And then we go to Chris Rock with a bunch of friends, or the fellow police officers. I don't know. I got triggered talking about Forrest Gump, and one of the guys asks him Zeke, Chris Rock's name in here, but I'll probably still call him Chris Rock. But Zeke, they were all talking about Forrest Gump, and somebody asks Zeke, "What, are you woke now?" And he starts saying, "No, I'm just trying to be respectful. Like, today it's called special needs. You can't say handicap. You can't say retarded." I fucking hate all that PC bullshit. Fucking, if the person, he's retarded, he's handicapped, fucking whatever. I hate hearing any of this stupidity in my horror movies or anywhere, but especially in my movies. Like, stay away from my movies, from the political correctness. That's why you don't get any of it on this channel, because I just don't, I won't stand for it. Like, I won't deal with it. That took me out of the scene, just having to rant, a mini rant about that. So Zeke gets in trouble with his boss at the police station because he does an undercover drug sting, where those people he was talking to in the hotel room were criminals that were going to go rob this stash of cocaine and money. And he was undercover, and they end up going down to the getaway car, and the police end up pulling their guns and everything. They're there already. And one of the guys looks at Zeke and says, "Zeke?" and gives away and blows his cover. So now he's getting chewed out that this is homicide, and he's supposed to be doing homicide, not be like robbing drug dealers in hotel rooms. And he's like, "Yo, they killed 4 people a week ago. Like, we could have got more of them if you didn't blow my cover." So there's a whole bicker back and forth here. I do like the kind of like the arguments back and forth between his boss and him. Fun so far. Yeah, so this is where I can't take Rock seriously, because he's alright in the beginning of this argument with his boss, and then she's saying, like usual, you went off without backup, you went off alone, and he's saying that he can't trust anyone in the department, and his father was Chief Banks, and just because his father was the chief doesn't mean he gets to do whatever he wants, and blah blah blah. But the way he delivers some of his lines here, it just sounds like comedian Chris Rock. And I can't take it seriously. Like, it pulls me out every time. And now he's getting a partner to work with, a rookie, which this I do remember, and those of you who've seen this, we find out at the end, like, this is the copycat Jigsaw Killer. So, I mean, I didn't see it coming the first time. I suspected it, but I wasn't 100% like, this guy's definitely the guy. But, so they do a good job with that. I think I remember Because now some of it's starting to come back to me. I remember that he has a phone call, Shank, and like he's arguing with his wife or something like that, and like it provides like an alibi for himself, so he doesn't look like he could have possibly been the killer, something like that. But so far, just the opening scene was great. Like, and it had the really fast cut editing of a Saw film, like really like that. But it goes back and forth for me with Chris's performance here. It's really hard to see him as Zeke, like completely Zeke. The Rock just spills out from time to time. So then they get the call that there's a homeless guy that got hit by a train, and Zeke and Shank have to go off to investigate it, which we're going to find out is Boz or Boggs. I think it might be Boggs, who was hit at the very beginning of the movie. See, like this whole scene with him and Shank going back and forth and talking about family, and Zeke telling him that, yeah, give it 10 years and your wife is going to hate you for not like missing family events and stuff, because most crime happens holidays and on the weekends, and that you pretty much have to give your whole like job, your whole dedication in life to your job, and that you basically choose that you're going to die alone, and like all this depressing shit. But he sounds like Zeke. He sounds like an actual character. Like there's no Chris Rock bleeding through, and I like the chemistry between them. I like the dynamic between them, even though we find out that he's the fucking killer in the beginning here. Like as a rookie partner for him, they have a good dynamic together. So, and they go and check on the train, and then they realize it is the cop from the beginning, and that it's not a homeless person, and that they were friends. Like Zeke and Boggs were good friends, and now he wants to be able to figure out who did this. I really like in this how Shank really is selling this ruse here. Like they get to the corpse in in the train tunnel, he's like, look, like he's ready to get sick, even though he's probably seen this shit all the time. He's a fucking killer. Like it doesn't bother him, and he's acting sick. Like when you know how they say, if you got to sell a ruse, you got to sell it all the way. Like even when you think people aren't looking, and then he makes the comment like, "You get a lot of TVs down here in the subway." Just those little questions and actions by him is really clever. Like I like that. Then he finds out that it's his friend, and they call everybody down there. And good on Zeke that he notices that it's not a bum by his wedding ring. He says, "I don't know a lot of people like bums who are trying to get their steps in. Like this guy's married and he wears a Fitbit, and so good detective skills, Zeke." So they get to the station and they get a video from the Jigsaw copycat killer. I'm just gonna say Jigsaw Killer because just for simplicity's sakes, so I don't have to keep saying copycat. But and his goal here is he's saying he wants to reform the police department and like make them like keep their oath and everything to protect the city. Which I mean, I whatever as a motive, like, bleh, doesn't really matter to me. It's kind of stupid a little bit, but I feel like they could have got a better motive for this guy, but it doesn't matter. And I like how Chris Rock, told you it's going to go back and forth, mentions that if this is another copycat. Now, I wonder what that means. Does that mean that they've had copycats before? Like in between Jigsaw and this movie? And we've just never saw it? Or does he mean another copycat, meaning anyone but John Kramer? As in when Hoffman was doing the traps and everything like that. So did he mean like Hoffman as a copycat? Because we never really look at it that way. We look at it as that he was an accomplice of Jigsaw's. Same with Amanda, and same with Dr. Gordon. But I wonder if that's what he meant by that, or if he meant that there were actual literal copycats that they've dealt with before. So that's interesting. Yeah, I was right initially. It's Boz, not Boggs. So I don't know how I remember that. and then they get Boz's tongue, severed tongue, with his badge in a box delivered to them. And again, I like how Schenk like looks at the tongue and goes like, "Oh God," or like or something like that, and walks away. He's the fucker who put this in the box. Like, I like how they handle all of that. So then Zeke gets heated here. They have the whole department sitting in the room, and the boss is telling them what they know already, and that it indeed was Boz, and that the train conductor didn't see anything. You just saw him hanging there before, like a split second before he smashed into him, and that he looked like he was bleeding heavily from the mouth. Then Zeke gets in a pissing competition because the boss gives the case to somebody else. And he starts flipping and then starts freaking out onto the other cop who said that he called Kara, the wife of Boz. And he's like, "Do you even know her? Like, did you call her? Did you give her an emoji?" And like, that's all fine with his acting. But then he speaks up and he says, like, Boz was my friend. Like, he played with my kid. Like, we went to games. Like, so fuck me. Then just the way he said, "No, fuck you." It's Chris Rock from his stand-up. Like, it's starting to not take me out as much. But so I'm not going to mention it from here on out. But that delivery there is, it takes me out of it a little bit. But it's not as bad once I get used to it. So it's already going up a bit. So let's hope that it continues that way. But I like that whole scene. Besides that delivery, like the whole scene of him talking about Boz and how they're friends and all of that, and that he should be the one to take this case, and that they were there first. Him and Schenk were the first ones there, and that I forgot the whole subplot of like his backstory. That they call him a rat and a snitch, and that they shoot him in the back, and that's why he's been on his own and working alone, and not with the rest of the department, something like that. But it's a cool little backstory for him. So I like how after he convinces her, his boss, to put him on the case to make him lead, he starts going over the case, and that Boz was first, last seen at the Fourth of July parade, and you see people like not paying attention at all. The people who don't like him, and some guys on the phone, people are talking to each other, and I like how the boss speaks up and says like, "Hey, like we have a dead police officer. Like it's a brother. Like put your personal shit aside and let's solve this case. So like get your stuff to Banks, Zeke, whenever you want. I mean like as soon as possible. Not when not whenever you want. As soon as possible." But I like that whole scene. Like not not too bad. So he goes to Kara, to Boz's wife, and talks with her after he has like a little tit for tat with his wife that he's in the middle of a divorce with about seeing his kid, and he starts asking Kara, does she know any? Did she see anything unusual? Right? Was he acting unusual? And the only thing is she remembers seeing a black car across the street one night last week, and Boz went out and was talking to the car. Then he was yelling at somebody inside the house, or yelling at someone inside the car. They don't really specify that. She says that yelling somebody inside. So did she mean the car or in the house? I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. And she didn't hear anything of what they were arguing about, but she said she'll look out for the car if it comes back or is parked there for some reason, and she'll get the license plate and stuff like that. And it's a good scene too. Like no complaints so far, really. Like besides Chris Rock's acting and the voice. And the one thing that I wish they did, even for Jigsaw 2, is like the first 7 films in the Saw franchise have that filter, like that greenish color filter throughout it, which is makes those films very distinct. Like you know it's a Saw film and stuff because it looks like a Saw film. That's why I'm hoping they return to that with the director who's directing Saw 10, because he directed 6 and 7, I believe. Yeah, 6 and 7. So I'm hoping that they put that green filter back in, like to make it feel like Saw, because that's why this and Jigsaw stick out like a little bit. It's kind of like the first 7, then their own little universe here, even though it is the same timeline. But if they would have made that put that same filter in, I feel like they would be inside the Saw like full story, if that makes sense. Like they just don't look like Saw movies, but this one looks a little different. This one has its own look from Jigsaw, even. Like, it definitely is a nice film to look at and watch. The cinematography is good. It's different feeling. And then we see Samuel L. Jackson. I have no idea what his name is. Is Zeke's father, and we see a little scene between them. They're estranged, so they don't really see each other or talk or anything like that often. And he says he's going to go pay his respects to Kara, Baz's wife, and then to hit him up later, and that they'll go over the case together because he used to be the chief of police. So I don't have anything really to comment on Samuel L. Jackson's acting here. I mean, it's just Samuel L. Jackson, like usual. And I remember he's not in much of this. I know he's at the end, like in the final trap and stuff, and I believe he gets killed. But besides that, there's only a few scenes with him. So I like how we see a picture of John and like the whole case board and stuff like that. You see a few pictures of John, like his autopsy photo and all of that. So it's good to see Tobin Bell in any capacity in this movie. So that's what Schenk does. He asks to use Zeke's phone, and I forgot what he does with it, but it's something that he was able to like prove that it wasn't him, or like create an alibi, like something like that, or to screw over Zeke, or I don't remember exactly, but I remember it being a smart move. So I'll find out what it is. Yeah. So then they were all working on the case for the day, and then I like how Zeke like starts warming up to having a partner. Again, he's a murderer and who they're chasing, but like when he's leaving, he says, "Why don't you go home and stuff? Like be with your wife, be with your kid," and even asks his kid's name, and then says, "Like good work today." And it sucks that this guy turns out being the killer, because he could have had a. Now he'll never want a partner again, because now he's gonna worry every time he gets a new partner that this guy's a killer or some shit. So I could see him never wanting a partner again. It's like in movies with killer kids and stuff like that I always say, like they're never going to want it to be near a child ever again. Same exact thing here. So Detective Fitch gets it in the neck from Jigsaw, and he wakes up. This I remember. He wakes up in like a pool of water, like a little mini tiny pool or something like that, with a faucet that's dripping water on his head, and he has what look like fancy and much tighter, impossible to get out Chinese finger traps, like on both of his hands, with cables that run to some device, and that's basically all I can say now because they go to another scene, so I don't know what happens yet. And Zeke gets a call from Schenk saying that he was going through the records and stuff, and that Boz was like the cop, like the most of lying on the stand, like did it so many times, like by a wide fucking margin, he says. And he says, all right, well that makes sense. That's why they found the tongue at the courthouse. Which, did I say that? Because I think I said it was sent to them. They found it at the courthouse because the spiral was painted on the courthouse in the video. So yeah, that's why it was there, because it makes sense and it's symbolic. And then we see a little scene when Marcus, that's the father's name, Samuel L. Jackson, and Zeke are like having some food together and talking about the case. So this is where we find out exactly what happened in the past that makes everyone, not everyone, but most of the people in the department hate Zeke. That he ended up turning in a dirty cop. And that's a real thing, man. You don't you ever rat out dirty cops and stuff like that, you will get shit on from all the other dirty cops. Like your life will be a living hell, and that's basically what he had to deal with. Like he did the right thing. They show the flashback between his father and his now boss, and him saying like, the boss is saying like he did the right thing. He's like, it doesn't matter if he did the right thing. Like, what do you? They're gonna praise him as a hero in the papers. What do you think they're gonna do? What about all the other cops? Like, he has so much internal damage control to do, and like, he's right. Like, if you're a cop and you snitch out a dirty cop, and don't expect to have no consequences, because you definitely will. So then they get delivered the department another video, and it shows a car with the spiral on it, and then it has like a pig puppet now, like a pig marionette. It's all right. It's not anything bad. It's just different. Like that I don't have a problem with. Like being different from Billy the puppet because it's a copycat, so it makes sense. And they get there and proceed to find a real pig corpse in the truck with the spiral on it. So they end up finding Fitch's fingers in a box with his badge number. So this is like his thing. Jigsaw copycat ends up just putting them in traps. When they fail, take some body parts with the badge, send it to the police, like, or put it somewhere in this with a spiral on it for them to find. And I kind of enjoy how they go and show this part, and then go back to the trap and show what happened. Like it's not all in chronological order, time wise. Like it's that's kind of cool. I like how they show the outcome first, and then they go back, and then we get to see the trap like take place, and then we get a flashback when after they find the fingers and the badge of Marcus, Zeke's father, when he was the chief of police, and Zeke got shot because he called for backup 3 times in like 8 minutes, and nobody came. So then he ends up saying like, "Yo, I'm gonna call dispatch, find out who was closest there, and whoever it is, I'm gonna take my gun and I'm gonna kill that motherfucker." And then we see that it was Fitch because he starts walking away and he figures out it was him, and he goes off on Fitz, man, like, like he's about to kill him. Like he starts punching him in the face, like with his gun in hand. And then like the two cops had to pull him off of him. He's like, "You're done. Like, don't ever let me see your face again." Like, cool scene, cool flashback. Live or die, make your choice. So bad. So then we see back to the trap with Fitch, and he has the Chinese finger trap things on his fingers, and the tape is saying if he has a device in his mouth, if he bites down on it, it'll rip his fingers off. If he doesn't, then he's going to get electrocuted in the water, and that'll be his watery tomb. There's no OJ like Florida OJ. And of course, he does not make it. Like, I don't know, but these traps so far, it's like these are things that I do to get out of there alive. Like it's not like something incredibly crazy like some things we've seen in the past 8 movies, like the have your tongue ripped out. Like, do it to live, man. Maybe they can graft the tongue back on. This guy with his fingers, they can get fingers to put on your hand. Like just let your fingers get ripped off. But he does, and he waits too long, and then they start ripping off, and then he gets electrocuted and dies. I like how his eyes, the white of his eyes, turn like yellow. I don't know if that would happen in real life. I'm not sure, but it's a cool shot right before he falls backwards, like and is dead. That's a funny cut. But Zeke is talking to his boss, and she asks him like, "Do you get anything?" And he says a name. He's like, "The last guy that Boz was with, Benny Wright." And then she says, "You only have like some hours, not days." And then it cuts, and it goes to Schenk with Zeke staking out where Benny is, and he's like, "And this is where Benny gets his meth." That's funny. This drug dealer is fucking stupid, man. Like, come on. This guy literally has a bunch of junkies and crackheads and shit like that outside his window, and he puts a paint can or bucket down on a rope for them to put money in, and then he pulls it up, and then he puts meth, the drugs, and whatever other drugs he sells in it, and then lowers it back down. Dude, the cops don't notice this. Like, of course, we know some are crooked and stuff, so maybe they're getting paid off. But what a stupid, like, totally non-conspicuous way of selling drugs. And then Shank and him go busting into the drug dealer's apartment, and Zeke just tackles him onto a table, and I love how, like, the bone's sticking out of his leg. Like, that looks good. Like, it's all mostly practical effects here. I don't see any CGI so far. Like, it looks like mostly practical, which is good. So they ask the drug dealer, Skeeve, about Benny Ritz, and has he seen him, and when's the last time he saw him, and he says 2 days ago. And I love how Zeke is, like, torturing him a bit, like, to talk. Like, he starts maybe I should sterilize your leg. And he starts pouring alcohol or some shit on his leg, and he's in pain, writhing on the floor. And then he starts smashing the bottle against his bone. Oh, and then he's out with the info. 2 days he hasn't seen him, and the word on the street is that the guy OD'd. So I like the whole scene that it's between Schenk and Zeke at a cafe, and he starts saying that this is personal, like, and this person's not following the orders, especially that of a ghost. And Schenk says, like, do you think they're sending these boxes to you because you're a lead detective on the case, or because you're you? And like, they ask him if he has any enemies that aren't cops, and he says, like, he brings them to this guy who his partner ended up turning in, and he had to do like 9 years of hard time because he was a crooked cop too. And he was shown in a flashback. We see him showing a picture of a cop to some guy, and he's saying, like, you could positively say and that this is the cop and stuff. And he's like, no, yeah, I will testify. And the guy just pulls out a gun and shoots the guy so he can't testify or say anything again. Crazy stuff, but another cool flashback. I like the flashbacks in this movie so far, and this is going up already in my book. Like, from the first time I saw this, this is definitely better than I remember. So cool how he did ask Shank's name earlier. His kid's name is Charlie, because then they get another box that's much bigger, and they freak out on the delivery guy, tell him, which rightfully so, get on the floor. Then Zeke says take him to holding, and they order everybody out of the room except for Zeke, the other detective, and the boss. And they open the box, and it has the pig thing, the pig face marionette type thing, but the body is just skin. And the note that comes with it says, am I getting on your skin, detective? Like, while you're looking for other bodies to drop, I'll take your head. And then he starts thinking of the skin thing, and he turns the thing over and says Charlie. So now he's thinking that Shank's son, this is his skin. Fucked up, man. Even for Schenk to do that, like, for Schenk to take like skin off someone and send it to the police department and say it's his son, like, guy's got a sick mind. Oh, that's right. It's not the son that they're implying it. They go into this butcher shop that used to be a place that, like a hobby shop, a train shop that Zeke's father used to take him to, and they find somebody skinned alive. Well, he's dead, but he was probably skinned when he was alive. But they make it think that it was Schenk, and that he's the last to get killed here. Cool that he fakes his death. And like, Zeke looks pretty shooken up by this. Like, he really started to care for his partner, but he's not going to care for him like coming soon. So it was post-mortem that he was skinned, but it looks good. Like, the effects and stuff, like, while they're showing like intercutting shots of Zeke looking at the body, and with shots of like Jigsaw scraping off the skin of the guy and everything and cutting his skin off. Looks pretty good. I like this too, how he gets a call on the dispatch for an officer down, and he shows up, and there's a few other cops, and there's a cop that has just a wound on his arm, and he said someone in a pig mask came up with a knife and slashed at him. He fought him best he could, and he ran off. Then he thinks of back to the conversation when they got the skin doll, and thinks of his boss, Angie. And he goes, shit, and he starts running off and calling her and trying to get to Angie as fast as possible. Then we see her at the police department alone with her gun pulled, so this is obviously the next victim. I will say this, the traps are much less interesting in this movie. But it does make sense. Because, I mean, Jigsaw had a whole bunch of experience, and as the traps kept getting like more grandiose as the time went on with each installment. This is just a copycat, so he doesn't have like access to all different properties and shit like that, to warehouses to have big elaborate traps in. So it does make sense story wise, but it's not that fun to watch because we've seen such better traps. But like it's 50-50 with me. As a story point, it's good. Just for like enjoyability, it's not that good. And then Angie's knocked out by Pig Mask, and then she wakes up on a table as Zeke is running to the department to find her, and she has like a pipe above her that is just dripping like it looks like tar or oil or some shit like over her face, and she has like a, some type of barrier like a piece of paper, but it's not a piece of paper, some type of fabric over her face. Then the oil shit is just falling down on her face and burning the shit out of her. Oh, and there's like blades on the side of her neck so she can't move her head much or it cuts her. That's a cool little addition. And Chris Rock gets in there, and her whole face is covered with this thing. Is it maybe liquid rubber or something that got poured? I can't tell what it is, but he starts peeling it off of her, and like there's just parts of her face are melted and stuff. And he even tries giving her CPR, and so she's dead. So that sucks, man. And he comes out of the room, and I like this shot. It has like some green lighting on it. It looks pretty cool, and they like show Chris Rock like walking slow, Zeke, and like just showing just how pissed off and upset he is at all of these things happening, and he ain't taking this shit no more. He not gonna take it. It's an intense little fight breaks out with the other detective and Zeke when he starts the other detective starts insinuating that like what about uh, the body of Schenk, like where we found him. You said that your father took you there when you were a kid, and the person was able to use that distraction, the diversion of the officer down, to get everyone out of the precinct, and he hacked into or signed into the computer, the log, and he deleted 13 minutes off the tape because they see the safe door opening, then it goes right shut, or and then it goes right to open or something like that. Open then shut, shut then open then shut, shut then open. It don't matter. And then they find out that it was his old partner Pete, and they end up going to find him. And then the detective starts freaking out on him, saying like, "You're too close to this." And they start like he starts insinuating it was his father could possibly be the killer, and asks like, "When do you last see your father?" And he lies, and he says this morning. And then they just go at it. And then he just says, "Get out of here! You're too close for this." And he goes to his car and just screams out all the frustration. It's a cool, tense scene. So he goes to the church to find Pete and ask him questions, and then he calls his father for the third time now, he says, and that he's like, "Pick up, where are you? People are asking questions, and like, you got something to tell me?" And then he hangs up the phone because he gets stuck in the neck, or no, he doesn't get stuck in the neck. He gets like something wrapped around him. Gets kidnapped is the point. And then we see his father going through this building with spirals painted all over the place. And then Zeke's father, he'd be kidnapped as well. Cool that we get some of the the Saw score, like the main theme here. When Zeke wakes up, and then there's somebody chained up on a bucket or some shit, and his head is covered. I'm pretty sure it's Pete, if I remember correctly. It makes sense because Pete disappeared. And he sees a saw next to him, a rusty saw, just like from the first movie, and we hear like the slow version of the theme from Saw, which I don't remember if the end of this movie has like the crazy reveal and plays the actual original Saw theme. I hope it does, because that'll take away from this at the end of this if it does not. Yes, 'tis Pete. This is a cool trap that they have a assembly line with a bunch of beer bottles and stuff that get dropped into like a shredder or some shit, and it projects the glass at him while he's hanging there at Pete. And then he's trying to figure out that on the tape it said that after Pete shot the innocent guy who was going to testify and stuff, that Zeke's career shattered like glass, and that's why the glass theme here. And that you can either let justice be served, or you can leave him and throw away the key, which is kind of obvious that it throw away, because he even mentions like throw away the key. Like, what the fuck? I mean, I get it. All this crazy shit's happening, and you're trying to save this guy because you don't want to see him murdered in front of you. But all the glass being thrown at him, and then we get the rapid cuts and turnaround camera of the Saw movies, the prior ones, which looks cool. Then he figures out that it's in the trash can, and he tries to go grab the key. And he tries to get him out, man, but he's dead already, and Chris Rock is ready to lose it. And his back looks great. The effects on Pete's back, like all torn up by the glass and stuff on his skin, that looks really good. There's actually some good shots in here. Like this reminds me of Mario Bava from Kill Baby Kill. Like when he's going down the staircase that twists and turns around like that, how it's shot from above down the stairwell. That's like right out of Mario Bava's Kill Baby Kill. But I like the whole that there's some like almost giallo lighting, like colors and lighting in this. Like there's some cool greens like in certain shots. I mean, it's only some certain shots, but it's cool. Then he's about to find out that Schenk is not really dead. And then we get the reveal here that Schenk's father was the guy who was killed by Pete, Zeke's old partner, when he was saying he'd testify and everything like that. And this is why he's doing this, because his partner killed his father. And I like how he reveals that he doesn't have a son and stuff. And that when he had the call earlier and stuff, he said that Charlie's crying and he was just playing a baby recording of a baby crying off his laptop. Cool. That's what he borrowed Zeke's phone for, was to call his dad to get him to come here. That's why he took his phone. Okay, that makes sense. I don't know, man. Listening to Schenk, starting to make a lot of sense. He starts saying that John Kramer was right with the spiral, that it symbolizes change and progression and evolving, and that he wants to partner with Zeke. Because why limit yourself to, trying to change just one person at a time when you can try to fix an entire broken department? And that he wants to work with him. That just says, because Zeke is different, that he took a stand against a dirty cop. He's one of the good ones. So he wants him to find the dirty cops and then let him do the rest and take care of them and kill them. So he wants to fucking kill all the dirty cops, and he wants Zeke to help him to pick out who they are and lead them to him. Obviously, this ain't working well, but it's not bad. It's a good fucking motive. And Zeke puts a time limit on his choice. Schenk puts a time limit on Zeke's choice. He says that he's in, but his father has to be let free. And he says, I want to believe you. And he ends up calling 911 and saying there's a crazy guy at the old soap factory here, and that he starts firing a gun off so that they hear in the background. So he says, SWAT's on their way. Like, I want to trust you. But we know he ain't fucking teaming up with him. And they walk into the room, and there's Marcus Banks hanging like in a device that looks like he's been being bled dry, like slowly. Like there's a whole bunch of like jars around where his feet are, and he has all these tubes attached to him that are draining him of his blood. And I like how the father says, shoot this motherfucker right now, Zeke. Like he ain't negotiating, playing nothing. He's like, just shoot him. But Schenk says, if you shoot him, you only got one bullet, and if you shoot me, then your father's gonna die. So I like all this. And so in 3 minutes, his blood is gonna be drained completely from him, and the jars will be filled, and he'll be dead. And he says you have to shoot a target, and that if you shoot him, if Zeke shoots Schenk, then they both lose. And if he shoots the target, then they both win. So what would you do in this situation? So then he gives more information to Zeke and says that there's this policy called Article 8, and Zeke's father was the head of it. And they would, Zeke's father starts saying like the murder rate went down, like we did what we had to clean up the streets, and that people felt safer. And he's saying that's bullshit. It was one of the most corrupt policies in history, police policies, and that the cops got dirtier the more the streets got safer, and that Angie, his Zeke's boss, was second in command of this policy with his father. So there's cool stuff in here. Like this definitely went way up on this watch, like 100%. Oh, here's the theme music. Sounds great. So Zeke ends up getting pissed and shoots up at the target, and his father drops down and he checks on him quick and he says, "Yo, go, he's getting away." And he just starts beating the shit out of Schenk. I remember this. So then, while he's beating the shit out of Schenk, the people, the SWAT team, are cutting through the door, and it triggers a device. These cables pull Samuel L. Jackson back up in the air. Then they start showing, like in the reveal, fast cut flashbacks, all like the little lines and hints that Schenk gave to Zeke, like saying, like when they were in the diner or cafe, and him saying like this is personal and stuff. He points up and say, "Your father's the start of all this, and that I wanted to do this because of him, and that I've been dreaming of this since I was 12 years old," which is how old he was when his father was killed by Pete. Then a gun just falls out of his sleeve, and him saying he controls all the strings, like the little puppet pig that we see earlier. The wire pulls up the gun in his hand to aim at the SWAT team, and they just blow Zeke's father away, man. Like, it's fucked up, and the theme playing through all of it. And you see him freaking out. Zeke is looking at his father after he's killed, drilled with holes, and he's screaming. Then he looks back at Schenk, and the area he was beating him up in is an elevator, and it just starts going down, and Zeke screams, "No!" Credits. And this is directed by Bosman, or Boozman, Darren Lynn Boozman, who did the third film, the fourth film, like a few of them. This went up. This definitely went up for me. Like, this is a pretty good movie. I still feel like it's more a standalone thing and not contained in the last 8 movies. So it's still my least favorite in the series. But being my least favorite in a 9-movie series where I adore 8 of them, it's not that bad. So this is one 100% got better on this rewatch, guys. Spiral from the Book of Saw, and I can't wait for Saw 10. Cannot wait to see what they're doing with that. And like I said, I hope that Gertrude, I always say Gertrude, but that's not his name. Something, Gretert, I'm not even going to try anymore. But he's who directed 6 and 7. I'm hoping that he has that nice filter, that Saw filter on, and it feels like, Saw 1 through 7. But alright, guys, I got another video coming up, and I have tonight at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Come over to Mike's channel at The Real Fifth Beetle and watch Mike, me, Dave from Savage Zombie Reviews, Alexi at Alexi Gammer, and Professor Macabro at his channel. And we are going to be all going through our top 10 lists of the best horror movies, or our favorite horror movies from the 2000s, 2000 to 2009. So that's 6:30 Eastern Standard. Definitely don't miss it. It's always a blast every time we stream together, and especially when we've been doing these lists. We did the 80s, we did the 90s, now we're at the 2000s. So join us for that. And wherever you guys are from, hoping you're having a good night, morning, or day, and I will talk to you soon. Take care, guys.